Yeah. Are you going to say something?
Yeah.
What?
Just to welcome everyone back to another Thursday night. We're heading to just before Hanukkah, Bezrat Hashem. Sunday night is the Hanukkah, the Chag of Lights. Please God, we should all have miracles. Just to mention, we saw the shir. This week's shir is sponsored anonymously, for the refuah shlema of Yehudit Bas Paya. She should have a complete refuah. Also, just to mention that it should be a complete refuah for Yisha Aaron, Ben Chana, she have full recovery. Also, Sarah Sheva Bas Rachel Gutta. But as I started, that the shir is anonymously sponsored for a complete refuah for Yehudis Bas Paya. We share good news. As we've been doing till now, we always mention every week, welcome to sponsor shir, to be in touch with myself or Rabbi Suchard. And as we started the last few weeks since Rosh Hashanah, we are in the year of Shemitah. And just to put in a short word about Shemitah, I know it's already 11 past 8. I just want to first mention one quick idea about Shemitah. One of the laws to mention is that we spoke about how the fruits and vegetables throughout Shemitah are holy. And one of the halachas regarding the fact that they're holy is that the usage of the fruits or vegetables. Therefore, a fruit or vegetable which is of the Shemitah year, meaning it has the kedusha, the holiness of Shemitah, may not necessarily be used to turn into a juice, unless it is normally used for that purpose. So, for example, oranges may be squeezed into orange juice, lemons may be squeezed into lemon juice, olive oil may be squeezed from olives, because these are general usage that's done generally. But to take a fruit or a vegetable that's never normally used to be squeezed and to just try some new culinary art, one may not be allowed to do it during the Shemitah year. So questions comes up with carrot juice. Now it's becoming quite a popular thing. But any type of other juice, maybe cucumber juice or something that one may not really try that during the Shemitah year, as it's not normally something which is done with fruits and vegetables. Okay, and likewise with the oranges and lemons, if you would squeeze them, those bits of pulp left behind do retain its kedusha status, and therefore if you would want to get rid of it, you have to make sure to dispose of it in a holy way like anything else. That's just a short word about Shemitah. Wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos. It should be a happy Hanukkah. Please God, we'll see everyone back next week. And it should just be a week full of miracles and good news, and enjoy your donuts. Wishing everyone a good Shabbos and a happy Hanukkah.
Thank you. I just want to mention also, I also thought that just to mention that, like everybody, Hanukkah is Sunday night, and the right time to light the candles is really just as at the beginning of dusk, just as after the sun goes down, and to last for half an hour into the night. That's quite important. And every night you put the candle on the right, and you always add a candle, and you light the new candle going from left to right. The new candle that's lit first. The first night you make 3 brachot, and then the other nights just 2. The first time is when you make the shechiyanu also, and then of course you always light the hadlik shel Hanukkah, and that God made nisim, made miracles. It's actually a very easy mitzvah, but it's so important. And maybe next week we'll have a little bit of a chance to speak about it. We'll see Hanukkah, what we're going to do. And there should be enough oil or a candle. It shouldn't be a small little candle, but it can be even candles you light for Shabbos, 7 in a row. But of course, it's always better to have a menorah, and should you have enough wax and oil to last a half an hour into the night. And then on Shabbos, that the candles should be that you light them before you make the bracha on the candles for Shabbos, because once you've done that, you accepted Shabbos, and there it should be last a little longer, because there you light the candles 18 minutes before Shkia, before the sun goes down. Okay, so tonight I thought it's to do with the Pasha to be speaking about over here, and people talk about it all the time, is the importance of names, a Jewish name, and how to name a baby, and to sometimes to change names. So I'd like to speak about that, and then because of that, that's mainly last week's Pasha, but we're still in the week where Yaakov and Esau, but then just a little bit on retirement. I just want to throw out something, because that's actually my favorite subject at the moment. And we'll talk about that. That's the book that really I've been talking about, for the couple of last 2 years, and now to go ahead with it. But where we learn about Jewish retirement is from this week's Pasha by Yeshiv. But we'll do that in about 15, 20 minutes. But the first 10, 15 minutes are just to mention that what is in a name, that a name in Judaism is important. So where we find where a person's name was changed in a great manner, not, in fact, Abraham was really the first person, because his name was Avram, and Hashem called his name Avraham, because he was the father of all the nations. Very interesting. Not the father of only the Jewish people, Abraham, but of everybody, right? And we did speak about the, like Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, we say that all of humanity is being judged. It's somehow that many of the Goyim don't sort of relate to that. Their Rosh Hashanah is just sometimes just having a good party. And there also his wife's name was Sarah, which means like she was a princess, Sarah. But and then at the beginning it was Sarai. Sarai means mine, and then she became Sarah. She became like responsible also to the world. Very interesting. But where we have a person's name which was changed or added name, and that was with Yaakov and Esau. So Yaakov and Esau, so before Yaakov went to meet his brother Esau, what happened is that he fought with the angel. We spoke about it the other night, and then when the angel was not able to overcome him, and they wrestled till the morning, so he said that allow me to go, as if he had him in a grip or something, so then he touched him on his thigh, and he had to let him go. And then Yaakov said to the guardian angel of Esau, Bacheni, bless me. Right? He said, give me a blessing. Now, if you look in the psukim afterwards, it doesn't say any blessing. It doesn't say you should be rich, you should be strong, you should be whatever it is, right? He says, what is your name? He says, Yaakov. So he says, from now on, you're not Yaakov. From now, you can call Yisrael, because Yisrael means Kisarita imana Moshim. You fought with men and the Elohim God, but of course, referring to the angel of Esau, Patuchal, and you overcome that. You overcame even Elohim in that sense of the guardian angel. So the question is such an interesting question. How is he different? Before he was Yaakov, now he's Yisrael, right? So is it like giving him a medal? You had a prize fight with somebody who was strong, and you won, right? So he says, give me a bracha, so give him a blessing of what we would think a blessing is. But he says, from now on, we'll call you Yisrael, that we call you Yisrael. So was it like a badge, but was like a medallion that he won, or was it something different? And the Meforshim, the commentaries actually speak about it. But we see over here the significance of a name, because Yaakov means a heel, so that you overcame people by grabbing them by the heel, because like he tried to get out of his mother's womb before Esav got out, and that's sort of coming from behind, you know what I mean? Like he had to get the birthright also. He had to dress up as Esav, but now he says, you're a Yisrael. And Yisrael stands for somebody who's strong, right? So how does he become strong? So just because, if a guy happens to be a weakling and you call him Shimshon, Samson, so what, from now on he can go and pick up weights, or do something which is different. So there you see that the commentaries explain that we learn from there is that a name changes a person, and a person has to live up to his name. And if a person has a strong name, so somehow it's got to do with the pneumius, like the spiritual standing of a person, but simply it also gives him a feeling of self-esteem. It's important. He's strong, like Yaakov. You're Yaakov, Ishtam, a simple guy, always sitting and learning by the books, right? And now you're Israel. You're strong. You're mighty. So sometimes he has to flex his muscles. So a person, it's good. It's important, like see, and Chana. Chana is right. Really comes even from the word chain. Chain is grace, right? Graceful, right? Not coarse and not being bombastic, but it's a person with a certain dignity, right? And a person lives up to that. And I once said, tells it Shiri Das is like books which were written by one of the beginning starters of the Tel Shib in Europe. He wrote that when Yaakov blessed his children, so he called out their names, and they had to live up to their names. That the names were special. He just told him who they were, like Ruvain, his oldest son. He said, "Pachas kamayim." He says, you're a little bit too hasty to doing things, right? I mean, we all do that. I sometimes in life, sometimes it's so important that you have to practice what you preach. I know, just like personally, that I mentioned personally, sometimes you make a quick decision nowadays. You see, when everybody, maybe sometimes you have to change countries and change currencies, and it's difficult to make the right decision at the right time, and you can either win or lose. So it's important but not to be hasty. I wish I was less hasty, so please God, one day you'll learn, I don't know, maybe you hit 90, please God, we'll be able to do the right thing. But that's the importance of names. Very interesting. I remember from one of my teachers, Rabbi Osborne, he actually, Shalom was married to his daughter. One of his daughters. He's passed away, but he was a teacher of mine in Tells. I remember when we came to the Parsha of Esav, but if you look at the actual word, it's Ayin Shin Vov, Esav. and if the shin, if you change it to just put the dot on the left hand side, it's from asu, ayin, sin, vov, asu. Asu means made, like he was already made. So, and he was considered in a way an evil person. So, so, and when he was born, it says that, like he had a lot of hair and he was ready, it looked like he came out as a well-formed young little boy instead of just a little baby. But he says that sometimes that's a person's downfall. What Osman said is because Atsu, when a person thinks, I've done it, I know it all, that he's, so that's something which is not correct and not good for a person, that a person should always know that a person has to learn. A person cannot, just think that he knows it all. So that's asu, very, very interesting. While we're talking about names, as I was, thinking, you find many people whose a Kohen is a Katz, a normal Katz is a Kohen, Sometimes if the Katz, this Katz, is not a Kohen, he says, Mr. Katz, God forbid, at a funeral, come forward, and they say, but he's not a Kohen, So why should the word Katz, you ever thought of it? Why should the word Katz denote a person who's a Kohen, right? So really, in Hebrew, if you would spell a Kohen would be Kohen, right? Chof, K, and Tzedek means a righteous Kohen, right? Kohen Tzedek. It's a nice way of, introducing the. But if you say it would be if you write it in English, it would be a K, and Tzedek is like a TZ. It's Katz. If you look at it, Katz. But it's you find a very lot of these things. So therefore, it's so important to remember, that how it's formulated. Then another very interesting thing right at the end of the Parshas Vayishlach, that's in the end of last week's Parsha, is that when Benjamin was born, so Rivka called him Ben Oni, the son of my affliction, Ben Oni. And Yaakov straight away changed his name to Ben Yamin, the son of, Yamin means the right. Rashi explains over there because he was the only child out of all his 12 children, really 13, because he had a daughter, Dinah, who was born in Eretz Israel. They were all born in Egypt, but he was born as they came into Eretz Israel, Benjamin. So you I think, turning to the right into Eretz Israel. That's what Rashi says. But she called him Ben Oni, and he changed it. So, you would think that's not such a nice thing to do. His wife last wish, she passed away at that time, that why don't you keep the name Oni, the son of my affliction, that he will always remember, that unfortunately his mother passed away. But the truth is, it's a name that you walk around with that it takes away of self-esteem. It can actually bring depression. It can bring something of, it was a good moment, but it was a terrible moment because his mother died at that time. So Yaakov realized that no, he should have a stronger name. Should be a name which is going to give him strength, to give him self-confidence, to give him something to aspire to. And so that brings to the interesting question nowadays. So Rav Chaim Kanievsky, that is, we ask, so he likes it that he seems, actually I have a book on names of it. We were discussing it. Even today I was discussing it with my sons, so that he felt that the person should have a strong name, like a biblical name, or a name which is more significant. So there's many names which people. I'll give one name which is neither here nor there, but people like the name Yair, right? Yair is to give light, or is light, right? So Yair, but you don't find it in the Torah. So he feels that rather give a strong biblical name. If you have a name after Rivka or Sora, Chana, or Chava, right? Eve. So it's they're biblical figures, and a person aspires to them. So that's why it's important that when they give a name, is not to just to give a name like a person likes the sound of something, which and it's not I'm scared to say some names because a lot of people like these names and things like that, but sometimes if a person is asked about a name, so if it's a child, a grandchild, or whatever it is, so the one which should give a name which is a little bit more distinguished, a little bit, and somehow a person lives up to the characteristics of that name. We don't like to give names after someone who was very sick, died young, and we know that if a person has a name and is very sick, sometimes we change the name and add on the name like Chaim or Chaya or Raphael and there's an angel which is Raphael, and it's like Refuah Kael, that that God should heal a person. So you see that names are significant. So I think this is the first part of that. So just to bring that out, because it's so much in the passion, and it's so every day there's somebody asks about a name, or asks, should I do this or should I do that? It's to choose carefully the name. And if you look through the Torah, the whole Torah speaks different people, different names. I asked the question also that Moshe really is a strong being, Moses, but it came from the daughter of Paro, took him out of the waters. But could be that after the name has become recognized, so it's became very strong, knowing that figure, maybe that she risked her life or she saved her life. Therefore that name has a lot of significance. But I very much wanted to just touch on this subject because, please God, it's just my personal ambition to write about retirement, and only a person who's retired can really understand retirement, and people about to retire should know about it. And we find, where is it mentioned retirement in the Torah? Where is it mentioned? Is there such a thing as retirement? So in Judaism, it's all based on this week's parsha, Vayeshev. Very first words, it says, Vayeshev Yaakov, and Yaakov dwelt. Vayeshev Yaakov B'Beersheba, that he was living, he's been through a hard time, that Yaakov had to run away from Esau, right? And Esau's son chased after him, he got away from that. Then his father-in-law wasn't the greatest guy, and he had to work for his two wives, Rachel and Leah, for 7 years, another 7 years. Then he had to work another 6 years for his parnosa, he had to get paid, and he had to run away. Imagine he had to run away from them. We don't understand it, that he told his wives, he brought them in all four, two wives and two like half wives, and says, we out of here, and he just left without telling and Lavan. So it must have been, when we look at it, we just see a few of the psukim, but there's a lot behind it. You can imagine he wouldn't have done such a thing, and if he didn't think that it was necessary. And then afterwards, he had to meet Esau, who he had bought the birthright, and Esau wanted to kill him. He sent his son Eliphaz to go to try to kill him when he was on his way out of Beersheba, when he ran to where Lavan was living. And now he had to stand up to him. And then he had the Maisa with Shechem, where he defiled Dinah, his daughter. Shimon and Levi went and killed out the whole of Shechem, the whole of that city, the whole of the place. And anyway, he didn't have the easiest of times, right? So Vayeshev Yaakov. So Yaakov said, it's enough. He says, living Eretz Yisrael, it's time to go to the Dead Sea, to the Yam HaMelech, nice hotels there. I'll check into one of the hotels and have a bath, a mud bath one night, and another bath we'll go into the sea, and it's warm there, and I'll walk a little bit. I'll do this, it's time to retire. So there's many explanations to the word Vayeshev. One of them, Rashi brings from the Midrash. It says Vayeshev Yaakov, Bikesh Yaakov Leishev B'Shalva. Yaakov wanted to live. The word Shalva means a little bit more than just peace. Shalva means a peaceful existence, right? A peaceful existence. He just wants to get into a hammock, put up his feet, place, have a cup of tea with lemon, and listen to some nice music and just relax, right? So Hashem said, Tzadikim, he says that Hashem says, you've done so much, you've got such a big portion awaiting for you in the world to come. He says, you want to rest in this world. He says, you've got another couple of years to live. Use them, right? So that's what the Torah thinks about retirement. You find that the Kahanim, Levim, Yisraelim, so you find that the Kahanim that they used to work and the Levim from the age of 30 to the age of 50, but that was because the Kahanim had hard work to do, skinning the animals, etc. But then afterwards, they did different types of work, but you never found that they had to just rest, right? That now we can take it easy. So of course, it doesn't mean that a person can, at the age of 70, 80, that he can work the way he worked when he was 40 and 30, 40 and 50. Of course, it's not like it, but that a person should not give up. A person should not feel that now that I'm not as useful as before. And unfortunately, in the world that we live in, that in the secular world, person hits 65. So if you're not working for yourself, and you may be a CEO of a big company, so they'll do you a favor, they'll give you another 2-3 years. Then they look for someone else, the biggest important scholarly people, and I know what happens in the teaching world, that a lot of the teachers that are taught within King David, Estretch, and other places, as soon as they hit a certain age, that the person can be head of Hebrew or head of Jewish studies or head of this or head of that. Because now we pinching you off. And it's really hard on a person who's 65, and I've been speaking to people, and can cause it, and the person to get into a depression, feeling not wanted, feeling that he's not doing what he would like to do, and is not as important as he'd like to do, and it's quite difficult. It depends what type of a position. There are some people that they can only too happy to be pensioned off. Maybe somebody told me, a judge actually told me like that. Maybe I just wanted to get off the bench. Then it depends exactly what a person is doing, but not to do anything is the most difficult thing. So what I have been doing is starting to speak to a few people just to hear what is their take, what is their understanding of this time. And I've already written about 14, 15 pages on thinking of, I'll just give you one example. One example is that maybe that now you have more time to be religious. You have more time to keep Shabbat properly, maybe to do other mitzvahs, to do charity or charity work, to help people, to see which how you can be of use, and people really, really need that, So there are things that now you have more time to do that. So therefore, you're very important, because other people many people don't have that time for that, don't want to spend their time to that, and you can. So that's very important. So I'm going to mention his name. Well, Dave Castle, he's mentioned to me something that I didn't think of, and why I'm mentioning it just because I'm just putting this out, and I'm going to do it for a few times, is that people see something in the Torah or something from life experience, and it can be so helpful. In the Torah, where else did the Torah speak about perhaps retirement? So Hashem, when he created the world, he says the seventh day is the day of rest, right? That's Shabbat. Then in the Aseret HaDibrit, in the Ten Commandments, it says, Sheish Yomim Taseh Melachah, you should do your work. Over Yom HaShvi, and the seventh day, you should rest, right? So I just added to it a little bit. He says, now, when should you stop keeping Shabbat? When do you stop making Kiddush on a Friday night? Is there a time that you don't? Of course not. There's no time that you stop saying Kiddush on a Friday night. You just keep going, right? Because that's what Hashem said. So what about the first 6 days? The first 6 days, the six days you got to work, right? So when is it that I don't have to work, right? So it doesn't say that, right? But a person can't be expected, of course, to be, if you're a carpenter, you're 80 years old and you're not chopping wood or something like that. You can't do it. But Shanim, you can work. There are things you can do. You can be so helpful to people. That's the wonderful thing. You can find other areas. So Dave Castle mentioned that. I thought that was very smart. Tucker, that one of the 10 Commandments, and Hashem doesn't give us, a chop line. He says, until then, now, I've given this to you until this time, and now you can, you're off the hook. Do what you want. You 60 in 10 years, you're 70. Take it easy. It doesn't say that, or doesn't say to stop the Shabbat, stop the mitzvahs, and a certain and the first part of the posuk applies also, right? So you can. As I always mention to people, the way they can really understand it is that life is a book. But life is made also, a book is also made out of chapters. See? And you can close chapter 1 and you can start chapter 2 and you can do other things. Even if it means that, which a lot of grandparents like, especially grandma, whatever it is now I'll go fetch my grandchildren from school and I'll take them home a little bit, and I'll help my kids, take them with their hands. And what's good about them, then you can shove them back, you drop them off back at their house and say, okay, now they're your problem, but there are things you can do. But of course, it's a little bit more intricate, and for some people it's harder, if it's harder if you've been a rabbi, or perhaps, or if it's harder if you've been a principal of a big school, and suddenly you're not taking assembly every morning, so you don't have that feeling of showing people what to do, running something big. So it is a very, very difficult transition, and a good idea. I was writing, just preparing for tonight, which we're going to mention a little bit more, is that that, for instance, a person will decide to write a book on his experiences, and even a book for persons, for a family, writing a history of the family and different things that a person can do for the other people. The person can find different other times, like we said, as far as religion is concerned, as far as charity work is concerned, and even what you were doing before in a different way. But it'll be interesting to have a book. So I wanted to ask, I'm going to try ask a half a dozen people that would like to join me in this venture, and everybody maybe put a few rand into it, because then if it's together, a few people sponsor it, we can able to put out something. And sometimes people have a different take and think into something that nobody else thinks of. I always say, I remember when I used to do the prayers in Santon for 46 years, right? And we used to go to do prayers at somebody's house. And I remember one of my favorite Pika Ovis is, we read out the Pika Ovid, and we used to say that what a person who's an older person and has learned from a university which other people haven't gone to. You see, and that's the university of life. See, person who's got all kinds of degrees, but if he hasn't gone through 70, 80, 90 years of life, he hasn't reached that university of life. And there's a lot to learn. And there's people come up with very interesting ways to solve things. But to end off on a cute note, a very cute note, that they asked Bob Hope. Bob Hope was a great comedian. Some of us remember him, others know other people more contemporary. For me, the greatest was Bob Hope, and Bob Hope. So somebody said, Bob, he says, you're an older person already. You've been on the stage. You've been so successful. He says, isn't it a time to go fishing? What do you need this for? You have to make up. You have to get in front of 500 people. You're going to make them laugh. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. You're stressed. He says, go fishing. Take your fishing rod. You sit by the river. You catch a fish. You can even, it's fantastic. You rest a little bit. So you know what he said? He says, you're right. He says, there's just one problem. He says, when I catch the fish, he says, the fish don't clap. Right? The fish don't clap. he says that the person is, person feels good when a person is appreciated and people say, "Oh, that was great, that was something special," right? He says that gives, so a person needs that. A person needs that. And we can find it in different avenues. Sometimes in the very same work that you're doing, and that this is a big part of what's we're going to put out together, and that is if you're working for yourself or you're working for somebody else. If you're working for somebody else, it is a problem. The problem is greater because they can tell you to go, right? Even though that you have more knowledge, after sitting working in a position for 30 years, and a guy 5 years just came into it's going to take you off. It's going to take him a long time before he's going to come to your understanding of how to run the company. That's the world we live in. But we can still be very productive. We can still do something where your person feels that he's somebody who's wanted, somebody who's appreciated, and at the same time, the person shouldn't sort of become despondent. The person shouldn't feel that it's not what I'm used to, not what I want. No, there's many things there's other things that a person can aspire to. So anyway, that's the two. So we just spoke about tonight about names, and that's what in a name. If you have a name, sometimes you name after a great person, so people want you to aspire to that person, or for somebody in the family who was good and kind and a good husband and a good wife, or whatever it is, a Baba, a Zayda, great Baba, a great Zayda, and could be that name, infuses into a person's being to be something special, right? And then, so we said the importance of choosing good names, and then also is, there's like we say, retirement. You have to prepare for it. You have to prepare for it. You have to prepare to think of a future. You have to think of, also part of the book will be a pension, and how that you have enough to to live with, to be able to continue. All these things is important, and the chap is that after it's written, the halavai people should listen, because in many times, and I think back also, sometimes people give you advice and you don't listen. That's a big problem itself. But please God that we should all be smart enough to be able to do the right things for as long as possible. Okay, thank you very much.